Welcome to part 2 of our discussion with Lam and James Helena. James is a student from Wellington in New Zealand, and he's currently studying software development and cybersecurity, whereas Lam is a recently graduated student and lives in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. She's from a biology background and has taken on technology and biology as in her degree. This is part 2 of the conversation because it went on for so long and it was so interesting that we decided to make a second part of it. As usual, if you enjoy what you hear, please subscribe, leave a comment, click the like button, and enjoy this part 2 of our conversation with Lam and James Helena. Thanks.
What was your guys' experience with Y2K? I guess
I'll go first. So just to put this in context, were either of you born before 2000?
No, I was not.
Oh, I was born in 1997.
1997. So you were 3 years old when we got to Y2K. Mm-hmm. You weren't worried about elevators or the world ending or money becoming right. So we had a lot of panic running up to year 2000. I was working in Wellington for a call accounting company, and I think that a lot of my friends and colleagues were a bit older than me, so they were all finding contracts doing COBOL programming because COBOL was probably one of the worst, were the most affected by the Y2K bug, I think. And some of the reasons for that, when they were building early programming languages, they thought they'd save memory because memory was precious back then. So they'd just store the two digits of the date.
Gregorian calendar.
Yeah, and it's like that made sense, but I mean that is also a really good case study of tech debt, i.e. we're going to cut some corners here and hopefully that can be fixed in the future. And then, and I always go on about tech debt. So leading up to Y2K, a lot of people were making a crap load of money, buying motorbikes, buying expensive computers, making all sorts of stupid money, spending like it was going out of fashion, building themselves spa pools, all sorts of things. I think most of us were pretty clear that it was everything that could be done has been done, and we'd upgraded most of the technology. The worst thing that happened was that the elevator leading to our building thought that it was a Saturday and didn't respond in the same way as it would on a weekday. I remember standing on the beach at the harbour, and just down by I don't know what it's called now, but in Wellington, where there's a museum and a few bars and stuff on the waterfront. And we were just waiting there. The fireworks went off. I said, "All right, I better go back to work just to make sure I can answer any calls because cell phones." That didn't.
Hello?
No, I didn't have one. And so I went back to work to man the phones, and just no one called in. There was no problems. I checked in the next couple of days, no problems. And then we just fixed bugs as they came up. Really, that was the worst thing that happened. I think there were a couple of things that went wrong. David, what about you?
So in 1988, I was employed as a Y2K specialist applications manager. leading up by a very large hospital.
A very big lifetime on that, isn't there? 12-year lifespan on that role.
Sorry, 1998, not 1988. My apologies, 1998.
Oh, 2 years, okay.
Thank you for correcting me, Michael. Y2K applications specialist. And I went into Y2K for this very large hospital corporation. And we were in absolute panic about what would happen to operations. So we had to stop all operations around the world for a 24-hour period in case everything went out. I was sitting on top, actually at Y2K at midnight, I was sitting on the roof of a large hospital watching what was going on below, waiting for the world to collapse. And nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, all the lights went out down below us. And we thought, here it comes. And a car had run into a power pole. And taken out the lights. So we had we had a world map in front of us, and that had hospitals over in New Zealand, Australia, all the way around to the US, right around the globe. And as each one went across Y2K, we phoned them to say, what went wrong? And everyone was going, nothing. But we did a lot of work. We moved all of the old 386s onto, what was it we moved them onto back then? Anyway, we got rid of all the old 386s, and we got rid of the computers that were going to fail and we knew were going to fail. So there was a lot of preparation work. And what would have happened if they had stayed on? Same as Michael's lift. It would have thought it was a different day.
Yeah. So really, I think for me, I think that most people or most companies around the world prepared enough that nothing happened, and it was a bit of an anticlimax.
Even the Defence Force was prepared for. They grounded a large number of planes in case it went wrong, and people refused to fly over Y2K.
That's crazy.
In case the planes dropped out the sky.
Because I got some interesting fact here, which made me want to ask this question, is because there was this fact I found is what they brought up in one of their lectures. They said that there was an estimated to have spent $308 billion before the millennia on efforts to try and mitigate the problem. Do you think that was an accurate number? Do you think like people were actually that concerned about it? Like, was it obviously because it could have been a problem, or was definitely a problem?
I go back to a quote. I go back to a quote that we heard at the beginning of this COVID pandemic. We'll never know if we overcompensated or overprepared for it. We'll only know if we underprepared. And we're okay here in Australia. Like Victoria's just been locked down, Lam's locked down, and so gone. New Zealand's been really good, but there are some countries in India, Philippines, the US still, where everything is still crazy.
UK,
so
Europe, Czech.
There's some countries that prepared really well, and you'll never know whether they prepared well enough. So same with Y2K. We spent
Y2K was a real thing. And if we hadn't have prepared, it could have been a disaster. But what actually eventuated was very, very little.
That's good.
So what happened? Fireworks went off. We got drunk. It was all good.
I celebrated my New Year at 1 a.m. I went home and celebrated the New Year with my family at 1 a.m.
Cool.
That's awesome. Great question. Now, hold on, everybody,
while we're here, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask about the last century?
You old buggers.
Sorry, but I don't.
That's okay.
I have a lot of questions about the future, though.
Go for it. Ask a question about the future. We may as well
I have questions that if you think the authorities will start using technology to manage people.
That's a really tough question. Yeah.
I think without a doubt authorities will be using technology, both application-wise, to monitor and to keep tracks on people around the world, especially after COVID. I think countries will get together to track people's movements around the world a lot closer. And I also think hardware technology will come in, and we will have robotic AI managing our defence and also our police services.
Yeah. Does it sound scary to you?
Yes.
Does it sound scary to me? Yeah.
Because
that sounds incredibly scary.
Everything has somebody managing it, and everything can be hacked in one way or another. Michael.
I forgot you're a cybersecurity nut. That's what I'm doing.
I know. I read that.
Yeah. I hope that future doesn't happen.
What?
No, I don't want it to. I don't want that to happen. I grew up being able to go out on the street until the street lights turned off, riding my bike with no chance of getting put in a white van and taken away. Now it's like you can't even go outside after 5 o'clock and without expecting to get run over by some loudmouth Tesla truck driving.
Tesla truck with the barbecue on the back.
Yes, I knew that was coming, James.
The Cybertruck, yeah. I do agree. Oh, don't worry. The Cybertruck was so Tesla have a truck, right? And it's an electric truck, so electric utility truck, and they've created this so that it looks like a tank. It looks like it really looks like a futuristic vehicle.
Oh, I see.
But you can get an attachment to put a barbecue on the back.
Oh, good.
And they started selling a few years ago, and David and I were looking at how we could buy one and import it into Australia, but that never happened because basically the shine hit. the shine came off it all, and I come back to that. I do think that there's going to be a lot of that, and I do think there's going to be a lot of the authorities and governments using technology to track and control people, and I think that's sad. I think it's already happening, and I think we have that level of tracking and to a degree control already, especially in some countries more than others, and I'm not discounting Australia here. It is scary, and I don't like it, and I don't have the option to go and live on another planet. So,
yet,
if I did,
yet.
If I did, I might take that option.
Okay. So let's keep going here because we can use this as a secondary piece of update. James, what about Starlink? And what about having 8,000 satellites that are scanning in low orbit around you, monitoring everything you're doing and providing ultra cheap internet and phones?
So now you're going to get me started because on one hand, I absolutely love the idea that they can provide networking to places throughout the world that don't have coverage. Because I'm a big networking guy. Excuse my French. I love the internet. I love the networking. And I think it's awesome that they're giving that option for people to connect to a network where you may not have fiber lines, ADSL lines or phone lines running. But I do hate the fact that they're putting up 8,000 satellites in orbit that could monitor everything we do. There's not necessarily saying that they're going to, but they could. And I'd also hate the fact that they're littering that much space. Like, I don't know if you've seen how much rubbish is up there. There is a lot of space, debris in space already, and they're just filling it up with even more and more, and it's making it harder and harder to launch rockets or find clearings. Not necessarily that we need to launch rockets, but It's just making it more and more difficult. It's kind of like polluting space, even though there's a bunch of space out there. But I do think it's like a double-edged sword. Oh, not double-edged sword. It's like a I don't know the correct term.
I believe there's about 200 or 300 million pieces of junk in the mid layer of space, because they send all the old satellites to a mid layer of space.
Yeah,
but I know that Musk actually wants to put a total of 42,000 satellites in low orbit around. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Like it's a lot. It's a lot of resources to do that. But you got to weigh up whether having that network connectivity to possibly everywhere in the world for an affordable price is worth it for using up that many resources and polluting that much area of space. I suppose you could argue it's not pollution, but you know what I mean? Like filling up space with that much more debris.
Yeah.
It's like...
I've just Googled it. Because I'm so old, I have to Google things, by the way.
I see. Yes.
They're calling it graveyard orbits. And yes, I do know how to use orbit.
I'm just calling it
Google.
That sort of relates to your field, is, in terms of biology and the pollution that we generate on Earth. How do we manage that, let alone the pollution in space? I mean, I don't know if you've seen the what is it, the Great Pacific Rubbish Dump in the middle of the ocean.
It's disgusting.
How do you think we manage that?
That's a very hard question, and I've been thinking about it for so long, and I haven't come up with any answer yet. Because
if you do, you'll be very rich.
I know. Which I am not right now.
Figure it out.
I will. It's really tough because, when you work with environmental issue, you touch on a lot of other aspects as well, like economics and then there's environment, and then there's people's life depending on it, and government and business and all that. It's a lot of sides that you have to deal with. And I think you have to be really extreme to choose one side and do something, but I'm not that extreme person, so usually I listen to all sides, and then I was like, well, they all have reasons.
Yeah.
So I really cannot take sides here, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah. No, I suppose
there's a point.
That's a good answer.
There's a point though where it comes to whether economics and business and governmental law and I suppose law has to stay applied, but for all those things, you got to ask yourself: do they really matter, or is it more important that we save ourselves, like get rid of all this pollution, prolong our life on Earth? Because I don't know what the statistic is, but I feel like it's probably we're shortening our Earth's lifespan significantly with the amount of crap, with the amount of stuff we're putting into it and polluting with. And I feel like eventually it's going to come to a point where, well, it should already be at that point where economics and business shouldn't be such a factor, but it still is. Like what Lam was saying, there's a lot.
And politics.
That's it. Yeah, it shouldn't be a factor. It should just be like, this is what needs to be done. This is what we have to do, irrespective of money and greed and politics and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm an idealist.
That's all right. Nothing wrong with that.
So we have 3 questions. James, you've listened to this podcast before. You know what they are.
Every episode. Every episode I listen to.
You are one listener.
You are one listener. James, what would you do differently if you had the chance in your short career as a freelance software developer / student?
I don't think I'd go to university. I think I would. It sounds bad, I know, but I think I would attempt to learn what I need to learn without going to university, because you don't need a degree. Okay, some places you don't need a degree to actually apply for. I feel like you could try and get some experience under your belt and use that, because when you got into I suppose it was different times, but when you guys got into the business, did you guys have a degree?
I got mine while working.
I got mine while working too. So I got both my degrees in different areas by working in those areas.
And that's what I mean, like bullseye. It's exactly what I was thinking. Like you don't need to go to university straight off the bat. You could go out and try. And if it doesn't work out for you, then you can go to university. But at least you tried to. Well, at least I would have tried to have done it without racking up debt. Stressing it over tests and stuff.
Yeah. Lam, what about you? What would you do differently if you had a chance?
Well, if I had a chance, I would have experienced more with technology, because I realized in Vietnam the resources is pretty limited for me to play with stuff. Mm-hmm. So back then I should have used all my money and buy all that hardware stuff and bring them back to Vietnam. Because I was trying to save money because they're pretty expensive, but then going back here I was like, I don't have enough resources, and then I have money, so it's still pretty useless. I wish I could have tinkering the stuff more, because back then they have something called marketplace. Marketplace is where you come and then you kind of sign up for a lot of classes with electronics and coding and all that. So what I regretted most is I didn't sign up for those classes earlier, because I was thinking, if I graduated I would have more time. But then once I graduated, COVID hit, and then I had to stay home.
Very interesting, yes.
Yeah, it's really bad. That's one thing I regretted most. But right now I'm trying my best to reapply and then go back to the US at some point to maybe study a diploma or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
My advice to both of you would be to look to the future at what might be coming around the corner from a software application point of view, and to see what trends are happening in 10 years, because that's where it's needed. Michael, what's your idea on that?
Come
on, Uncle Michael, give some advice on what they should look to.
What they should be doing.
Yeah.
Look, it's controversial, but what James said is interesting, because a degree is become less and less of value to organisations hiring in the tech field. Not saying it's not valuable. I think, Lam, you hit the nail on the head. They teach you how to learn, not necessarily what to learn, or maybe James said that, I can't remember. I'll go back and edit that to make sure that I get it right. I think that doing things that you're passionate about is really important. James, being able to help people, regardless of what that is still a passion, and that's important. And Lam, you have a really big passion, which is the biology side of things. So that's really, really cool. James, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, which is finishing your studies and the aforementioned freelance software development work, what would you be doing?
I would probably be either in the forces or the fire brigade. That was always my plan from when I was young, was to join the forces. And then I joined the fire brigade when I was 15, turning 16. And I was in that for a few years until I came to university, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I'd probably do something along those lines of like civil aid in the forces, or being a fireman.
Nice. Lam, how about yourself? You're obviously going to be a biologist.
That, and then I might be a traveler, a nomad. So
a nomad.
I like traveling a lot. A nomad. Just, I watched Nomadland. You heard about the movie?
It's
the
awesome.
Nomad developer. Awesome. There's your hashtag, awesome. Nomad developer.
That would be cool.
That is so cool, man.
But right now it's COVID, so my dream is delayed.
Yep. James, do you have any predictions for the future of technology?
I do indeed. I think that most things are going to be AI based in the future, and that probably suits you, David. I think that everything in the future will have, or AI will play a major role in all tech services systems in the future, just because you can do so much with it. Like, I'm using a thing called RTX Voice at the moment, or NVIDIA Broadcast, which allows me to use AI to pull out the bad stuff from audio. So if I clap it, it doesn't make any sound because AI knows what a clap sounds like and wants to remove it. It only leaves my voice in there. I think so. I do honestly think that everything is going to have aspects of AI in it in the future.
Lam, how about yourself? Do you have any predictions for the future?
Yeah, I do. And it's controversial too, because I agree with James, but then I feel like I don't know how the next generation will be like, because I have two little cousins and they're really into technology, and they kind of have some issue with language. So I don't know, like kids next generation who get exposed to technology too early will have, like, different problems than like us right now, because technology is powerful, but because it's too powerful, then sometimes I wonder what it's gonna be like for the next generation. Looking at my cousin.
That's actually really interesting, because I think the earlier we're exposed to today's technology, and let's say someone was born today, they're going to be exposed to what James was talking about from birth. I mean, David and I, when David, you probably had your first computer when you were how old? 5 to 6?
No, we didn't have computers around until I was at least 12, maybe 14. My first computer was one of the very earliest watches.
Yeah, okay.
It was a digital watch, and the only place you could buy it back then was Singapore Airport.
Right. Whereas, I had a VIC-20.
VIC-20.
I remember the VIC.
5 kilobytes of RAM.
Yep.
It was a machine, but
they stole some extra RAM from someone.
Yeah, we had to learn how to use these things. Now, a lot of that stuff that we took for granted, i.e., going to the library and picking up an encyclopedia to find out how what a wombat was or what a scorpion was, now exists in a whole different universe, where it's not just that I can type it into Google. I can actually ask my digital assistant, whose name I shall not say, to tell me about it. And the kids in the future aren't even going to need to worry about that. They're just going to have to maybe think it, and it'll come up in a holopad on their visor or their Google Glass, or their chip will be embedded, connected to the internet. And yeah, you're right, language will be a problem, because they don't need to speak, they just need to communicate with the computer.
Yeah, I was 14 when the VIC-20 was released, so that tells you that.
You heard it here. David is the oldest.
Oh, ouch. Lam, I agree with what frightens you. James, what frightens you about technology?
I was just going to say the same thing with what Uncle Michael was kind of just saying there, talking about how you could just have, like, you wouldn't need language, it happens. And I suppose we're kind of in I don't know how like true it is and all that stuff, but you always hear about things like some of the big corporate companies being able to just take all your data and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I know it happens, but to what extent, how much do they take? That kind of frightens me as well. How much?
I think that's probably like similar to insects. Like there's no way they could possibly process all of that information and then come back down to a single person and say this person does that. They've got to look at it at a macro level because it's just too much information to look at.
Yeah, I suppose I agree. Like I'm not sure. I wouldn't have any.
Not that I'm defending Google or Facebook or any of those other companies from stealing.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, be careful. You might get you're about to get cancelled, cancel culture and everything like that. Nah. No, I don't know. They might do what they might just take statistics. They might take personal information, but I don't know. That kind of frightens me, not knowing what they exactly take, even though they probably do explicitly say it in their terms and conditions, but no one reads the terms and conditions.
No, no one reads 38 pages of fine print.
David, what about you? What are you frightened of?
I reckon the next big problem we're going to have is fake images. So facial identity being stolen and used to propagate and to get data away from us, and that'll end up as some sort of ransomware. And I think they're going to join some of these ransomware attacks that we've got at the moment into fake images of individuals to try and identify you as a real person, even though you're not real. I really worry about that coming around the corner.
I suppose you just don't be important enough that it doesn't matter. So just if someone comes up and makes a fake of like you, Michael, then it's like who's Michael? Who really knows who Michael is?
That's where Lam's nomad stuff comes in. It's just a fancy word for unemployed and bum.
Don't listen to Lam. You can do it, man. You can do it, Lam.
Michael, what about you?
Oh, what frightens me?
Sorry, it wasn't meant to be difficult.
No, it's difficult. I don't know because like it's the same stuff we've discussed. It's like, you know, the fact that technology is, I mean, you know, both James and Lam know things that I don't, and that's because I've not been exposed to new tech. I mean, for one of the jobs that I'm working on, I have to understand TikTok. Now, I don't.
That's why.
There's absolutely no reason or nothing in my brain that actually goes, you know what, this is good. I'm getting dopamine from this. It is, I just can't understand it. And yet, you know, people, I'm not saying that you two do, but, you know, there's people of your age are probably on there all day making billions of dollars on there. And my fear is that I'll end up like the people that I complain about, saying, what do you mean you can't do that? Let's just do this. Just click here and click there and it's all done. And, you know, I'll be going, but I don't understand. Why is this so hard to do? So that's, I think, my fear, which is probably more of a personal fear. Last question, James, do you have a favourite piece of technology that you like?
That's actually a really tough one.
Apart from that computer that you just built, maybe.
Or the Nerf gun.
Nerf gun, that is cool. I don't know. It's really hard. I lost it recently on a trail ride, but I loved my smartwatch.
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely loved my smartwatch. It was just like carrying a phone around is fine. You can whip it out of your pocket, no sweat. But being able to just just use your watch, because I like having a watch, and it's just so convenient to just flick it up. And yeah, I suppose it has to be paired to your phone, but it can do so much. If you get a good one, you can do almost as much as you can do on your watch as you can do on your phone.
Yeah.
It's just a smaller phone at this point. I love it. And I suppose my headphones, I love headphones.
Lam,
nothing
what about
really
you?
Cool, fancy.
Lam, what about you? What's your favourite piece of technology at the moment?
I have a tiny little speaker I built myself a couple months ago when I was in the US and was locked down and was staying home. So I ordered these pieces of hardware and put together a little tiny speaker. The sound quality was not that good, but it's just really cute, and I think it's one of my first.
And you made it, which is really important.
Yeah. One of my first production, I guess. So I brought it with me back home. Have it right here, but I couldn't show you.
That's cool. All right, it's been really lovely to talk to you, James and Lam, and best of luck with everything. James, good luck with your exams coming up, and
thank you very much.
Lam, good luck with working with Team Scale.
Lam, thank you very much. I'm really excited about looking at environmental work, and I'll be really interested to talk to you further about that. And James, thanks very much, and thank you for giving me the Uncle Lobby, because that's never going to it's never going to lose that now.
Sorry, Uncle.
So cool.